Hi, what is going on, YouTube? It is your boy, Faithful to God, and tonight I'm going to be debunking Danyaahla from MaccabeesTV. For those who might not know, Danyaahla is a longtime One Wester. He was actually in the original school, if I'm not mistaken, and he was also a member of House of David Church in the 90s, in the late 90s to be exact. House of David Church was actually a group that splintered off from the original One West school. They were headed up by a man named Masha, who was believed to be King David reincarnated. And the reality is that Danyaahla, to this very day, continues to parrot many of the false teachings that he learned at One West. And so tonight, I will be refuting something that he presented in his Dark Ages presentation, which I believe he put out in 2016. I could be mistaken on that. Needless to say, he made tons and tons of errors. And at some point in the future, I will be refuting his entire presentation on the Dark Ages. Best believe that. But tonight we'll just be focusing in on one of the many errors that he made in that presentation. And so as you can see on your screen, this is something that he brought out. And this here is actually highlighting the sort of fundamental mistakes that One Westers tend to make when it comes to information and trying to revise history to comport with their pseudo-historical viewpoints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mute. Give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and mute this mic and play the video, the relevant video, so you guys can hear the kind of folly that is being presented by a lot of these cats, including old school One Westers. It's amazing that after all these years, none of these men have actually bothered to fact check the stuff that they're coming out with. Or at the very least, they are continuing to get even basic things wrong. So I want you guys to go ahead and listen to this. I may play the whole thing all the way through. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and mute and play this.
This is very important to understand. When I talked about surnames and names, I'm going to give y'all one example here, and then we're going to switch subjects. I believe I'm going into something else after this slide. This is very important to understand. There is a difference between the British and the English. Most people don't understand that, but there is a difference. Let's look at words. The word Brit, right? When you go to the book of Isaiah chapter 42, verse 6, when you go to the Isaiah 49 and 8, the Most High speaks about Brit Am, which is the people of the covenant. Brit Am, or as we say in Lashawan Quadash, Bar Yath Aim. Bar Yath Aim. Okay? The word Brit means covenant, right? The word Ish, or as we say in Lashawan Quadash, Ayash, that means man. So the word British means man of the covenant. That's what the word means when you look at the Hebrew. And you got a whole bunch of Israelites that talk about being Hebrew scholars. Well, how come you couldn't break this down? How come you didn't know this? The word.
So very quickly, what I want to do, instead of actually going through all of this, and actually let me mute this over here so I don't get any background. So he says that the term Brit and Ish means covenant man, right? What he's doing is he's making an appeal to actual Hebrew, right? Literal Hebrew. But then he goes on to undermine his own argument by saying that, Brit in Lashawan Qudash, which is actually the modern fraudulent dialect system, pronunciation system that was concocted at One West, which they claim is ancient Hebrew, but is not actually ancient Hebrew, is actually a modern innovation by men who were completely ignorant of how Shemitic languages actually work. And I say Shemitic because, they don't like the term Semitic. So let's just call it Shemitic languages. And the reality is that Lashawan Quadash, the way that he's using it, he says that the term British means covenant man. Now, he says, well, why didn't you bring this out? Why didn't you bring this out? But then he goes on to say that in Lashawan Qudash, it is, Baryath Ayash. So here's the question. How then are you making an appeal to conventional Hebrew if you want to make a distinction in the term, or you want to, because what he's going to do, look what it says at the very top of the presentation. The difference between British and the English, there is a difference. And he's going to explain later why he's making this distinction, because he's going to try to divide British from English in possibly the most unlearned way possible. But the reality is that he's making an appeal to the very Hebrew that proponents of Lashawan Kodash claim is Yiddish. They claim that Brit, if you were to ask them what is Brit and what is Ish, they would say, oh, that's Yiddish. Until they have to make these sort of faulty appeals to terms to try to come up with this crazy idea that, and for those who don't know, they are of the belief that King James and various people in England were actually Israelites and were black people. So this is why he is having to do very strange stuff like this. But isn't it funny that he has to make an appeal to the very dialect that he claims is Yiddish, the very pronunciations that he believes are Yiddish pronunciations, to try to come up with this? Because wouldn't it make zero sense if King James of England spoke Lashawan Kodash? Why didn't he say it the way he said it? Why is it that the term British is employed in the pronunciation that he claims is Yiddish? Why is that pronunciation being employed and not Lashawan Kodash? And in fact, we could actually get into the topic of why does the King James translation that King James commissioned have specific transliterations into the English, especially in the book of Job, Maseroth? Why does it have transliterations that he would assert are quote unquote Yiddish pronunciations? So was King James of England speaking Yiddish, quote unquote? Were his translators speaking quote unquote Yiddish? So right off the bat, he undermines his argument. But I want to do something real quick. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to open up another window. And I want to show you guys something. I want to show you where this British argument actually originates from. It doesn't originate with the One Westers. This is not original to them. This is, in fact, an argument that has been employed by proponents of British Israelism, i.e., the white counterparts of the white counterparts to what they promote, basically. So let me go ahead and get my screen. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up a little bit. All right, here we go. And this article is from the forward. So I'm going to go ahead and present right now. Hopefully it should be presenting. There we go. Let me actually pull it up on my side. And it says, Rabbi Samuel Silvers of Boca Raton, Florida, has a short question. Is British related to Brit? I take this question as tongue-in-cheek. The claim that British comes from the Hebrew words Brit and Ish, i.e. man, so that it means man of the covenant, has been around for a long time, 200 years in fact. It goes back to the beginnings of British Israelites, a movement founded in England in the early 19th century to promulgate the idea that British peoples hailed from the 10, actual 9, lost tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, how long was that out, y'all? All right, how long was that out? Let me know how long I was out because this has been a reoccurring problem with StreamYard. So if anybody in the live chat could tell me how long I had cut out for, hopefully it wasn't as long as last time. I think it was 3 minutes the last time. All right. If anyone can actually tell me, I'll go ahead and repeat what I was saying, and which is not, not too bad. All right, y'all. If anybody in the live chat can let me know, I'm actually looking at it right now. Let me know how long I was out for, and I will repeat anything that could not be heard. So, okay, not long. Okay, well, hopefully I'll just repeat that last part. So I will do this again. I won't present my screen. I will simply, since most of you already saw it, I'll simply repeat the last part. Okay, so about 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just start from the top. And it says right here where it says, the British Israel movement was founded by an Englishman named Richard Brothers, who in the 1800s published a book titled Correct Account of the Invasion of England by the Saxons, showing that the English nation to be the descendants of the lost 10 tribes. That's the name of the book, by the way. At its peak in the late 19th to early 20th centuries, the movement had tens of thousands of followers. Among the many quote-unquote proofs offered by it, such as the claim that the stone of Scone in Westminster Abbey was the very stone that served Jacob as a pillow in the night that he dreamed his ladder of angels while fleeing from his brother Esau, were a large number of the supposed linguistic resemblances between English and Biblical Hebrew. The British/British equation was one of the foremost of these. Of course, any beginning Hebrew student could tell you that, quote, the man of the covenant in Hebrew is Ish Brit and not British. But the British Israelites were never a group to be deterred by even the simplest of facts. Brothers himself died in a lunatic asylum, and his disciples were not necessarily as unbalanced as he was, who were not necessarily as unbalanced as he was, were no less delusory in their beliefs. And yet, like many delusions, these beliefs live on not only among the uneducated, but also among those who should know better. So I'm just going to stop there. That's essentially the relevant part that I wanted to read. And this is essentially what Danyaahla is doing. He's parroting, without realizing it, arguments that start from or derive from the very people that he would assert are quote unquote Edomites. But they themselves would say that they're actually the lost tribes of Israel and that they are, the original Israelites. But the irony here is that British Israelism predates his very own movement. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to continue to play this video because you're going to hear more of the folly from Danyaahla. And so I'm going to go ahead and present. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. And if I cut out, y'all, please, in the live chat, let me know. Please let me know because I know StreamYard is a little shaky. It's seems to have little glitches here and there. But I hopefully will be able to present this without any more problems. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and mute on this end, and I'm going to continue to play the video.
It means man of the covenant. That's what it means. Now, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Israelites were the ones that the Most High made the covenants with. So the people that were living in England that were calling themselves British or people of the covenant, that's because they knew that they were the people of the covenant, which were Black Hebrew Israelites, although they were actually practicing Christianity. But they knew that they were Israelites. And there's much evidence on that, which I'll go into another time. The English are the Caucasian usurpers trying to overthrow the people of the covenant. From the time of Oliver Cromwell, which we already went over that slide twice when he started destroying the black art. Also understand again, Oliver Cromwell, after he came into power, when he beheaded the Black King, Charles II, the son of King James, when he came into power, he rounded up the Black people that were in England, Ireland, and Scotland and shipped them to the Americas to be slaves. That is documented.
I mean, this continues to get more Uh-oh. All right, there we go. All right. All right, here we go. Here we go. Hello, hello. Can y'all hear me? Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. Hope there we go. Finally. Finally, StreamYard. Now, with that being said, this is the utter foolishness that I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff that shows Danyaahla to be completely unlearned. Why in the world would Danyaahla even assert something as foolish as that? Let me show something to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and show, hopefully I don't cut out again. I'm going to go ahead and show what he's doing. So he basically said a whole bunch of, I mean, where does one begin? So in his mind, British is indicating the Israelites, and then English is indicating like the usurpers or whatever he was saying. Let's go ahead and just do this. This is a simple Google search right here. This is simple Google searching right now. Take a look at your screen, y'all. British, relating to Great Britain or the United Kingdom or its people or languages. Remember, or its people or languages of the British Commonwealth of formerly the British Empire. The British people. Now let's look at the term English. Relating to England or its people or language. Now, what Danyaahla doesn't realize, and I'll continue reading, the language of England widely used in many varieties throughout the world. The people of England. Remember that. The people of England. Well, let's look at United Kingdom, because remember what it says right here, relating to Great Britain or the United Kingdom. So, United Kingdom, island country located off the northwestern coast of mainland Europe. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, y'all. I know. I know. Got to get used to this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to do something real quick because I'm doing this on my phone. So I'm going to actually do this so I don't have to keep getting dropped out. All right, there we go. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me. How long was out, y'all? How long was out? Let me know. All right. So for how long was I out? Just let me know in the chat. So this way I can repeat what I said, because I will go ahead and just do that. Hopefully we won't have any more interruptions. About 2 minutes. Oh boy. Man, oh man. Let's go ahead and start this over, y'all. Oh, all right, here we go. I'm actually going to just very quickly skim through this. So it says, here we go. United Kingdom, island country located off the northwestern coast of mainland Europe. The United Kingdom comprises the whole island of Great Britain, which contains England, Wales, and Scotland. And at the bottom, you can see right here how these various countries were unified. But the irony of ironies was that, for example, the Celtic kingdoms lying in Great Britain Southwest were formally united with England in the Acts of Union in 1536 and 1542. So there was a Great Britain during the time of King James. I believe he even called himself the King of Great Britain. So with that being said, though, as you could see right here, British relating to Great Britain or the United Kingdom or its people or languages, which means since the people of England, because English is relating to England or its people or languages, or language, I should say, excuse me. That means that the very term that he tried to divide actually signifies both group of peoples. It is absolutely positively mind-boggling that he would even come to such just a demonstrably false conclusion that all a person had to do was Google search. All this took was a little Google searching. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring out some more points. Okay, more British. Here goes more. The Celtic language of the ancient Britons, British English, plural in construction, the people of Great Britain or the Commonwealth of Nations. Okay, first known usage before the 12th century in the meaning defined as sense 1a, which would be this one, Celtic language of the ancient Britons. Okay, but ironically enough, when we look at English, look what it says right here, of relating to or characteristic of England, the English people or the English language. Definition of English, entry 2 of 4, the language of the people of England and the US in many areas now or formerly under British control, a particular variety of English distinguished by peculiarities as the pronunciation, English language, literature, and composition when a subject of study, plural construction, the people of England, an English translation, idiomatic or unintelligible English. Definition number 3, to translate into English, adopt into English. All right, there you go. This is utter folly from his end. Look, I'm gonna go to etymon.com. Let's just continue going with this because it feels like we're gonna have to continually bring this kind of stuff out because it's like you have to show these guys demonstrable proof. Well, let's just go through all the proof. The people of England, the speech of England, noun use of Old English adjective English contrasted with that relevant phrase right there. Of or pertaining to the Angles, from England, the Angles, the name of one of the Germanic groups that overran the island in 5C or or CE, supposedly so called because of Angul. All right. Now, the reality is this is referring to the people of England in the time of King James, because the people of England would be English, just as they could also be British when you are considering the fact that British would have indicated the unified countries. English is indicating England. Lest he try to bring out now the ish suffix, because it's funny how Danyaahla is using the ish suffix as meaning man. But now when it comes to these divisions, I'm sure he'll try to argue that ish suffix means sort of like, or, it doesn't really mean like, it's not the people of England. It's sort of like the people of England. Well, let's do something real quick. Let's look at the ish suffix. What does this mean? Let's actually debunk this. Ish, of, relating to, or being, chiefly in adjectives indicating nationality or ethnic group. Well, let's look at the definition in Etymon Online. Adjectival word forming element, Old English, of the nativity or country of. So whenever they make arguments against Jewish, isn't it funny? We could actually reverse this on them. We could say that the term ish in Jewish means Jew man, right? Let's use his faulty line of reasoning and say that the term Jewish means a man of Judah. Of course, he would never accept that, but when he wants to make appeals, or when one Westers would like to make appeals to certain faulty etymologies, they're going to go ahead and try to reverse it. Now, British means covenant man, of course, using the same pronunciation system that they claim is so-called Yiddish. Okay, so real quick, since I brought up Jewish, definition of Jewish, of relating to or characteristic of the Jews, also being a Jew. Now, of course, what they like to do is go to the definition of ish, that means characteristic of, or having a, or resembling, that kind of thing. But they will ignore the very first, of relating to or being, chiefly in adjectives indicating nationality or ethnic group. By the way, that term Jewish, ironically enough, in the original school at One West, I actually have one of their old websites, the ICUPK's website, where they actually refer to the Israelite as Black Jewish people. And if anybody doesn't believe me, I will actually bring it out at some point in time, whether tonight or in the future. I will actually show it from Wayback Machine, where they actually use that phrase in reference to themselves, Jewish. Of course, now they try to move away from that. Of course, Jewish has to be for the what they call so-called Jews. Because, he can't be a Jew. He's Jewish. He's sort of a Jew. Until they got to use terms like British. Now British means covenant man. Anyways, man. He actually mentioned something else in the video. He said that King Charles II was executed by Oliver Cromwell. It was actually King Charles I, the father of King Charles II. I mean, it's amazing that this guy, is using this sort of faulty reasoning. But let me do something else, man, since I'm on the ish topic. Let me go ahead and bring out biblical proof that the ish suffix is used in reference to the actual Israelite people when translated into English, because the English translators used it to indicate the actual Israelite people, including in the King James, y'all. So here we go. Let's go ahead and start. Now, according to Thayer's Greek lexicon, and they like to use Strong's, although I don't recommend Strong's. I highly recommend actually learning the relevant languages. It's Judaikos. And here you have the various forms, although not relegated simply to those various forms. It's Jewish. Now, where is it used? Titus 1:14, but also in their precious Apocrypha in 2 Maccabees 8:11 and 2 Maccabees 13:21. Also, Josephus uses it, and Philo of Alexandria uses it in his writing. So let's take a look at how it's being employed in Titus 1:14. Not giving heed to Jewish myths, or other words, the myths pertaining to the Jews. That's how it's being employed here. But let's look at it in 2 Maccabees 13:21, the same phrase that is being used there. And anybody who has 2 Maccabees 13:21 can actually look at it in the relevant translation. It is rendered Jews there, not Jewish, Jews. Now, if they still want to argue against the ish suffix, they're going to have a very difficult time when we get to Leviticus in the King James, when we see an Israelite woman being referred to as Israelitish. Notice the ish suffix is being used there to indicate her nationality. Now, if they try to argue and say, well, the Israelitish woman, it says it right there, the father was an Egyptian. No, the son of the Israelitish woman was the one whose father was an Egyptian. And the son, look how it reads, and the son of an Israelitish woman whose father was an Egyptian. In other words, it was her son's father who was the Egyptian. She was married to an Egyptian. But if you look at 11, look how it reads. And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed, and they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shelamith. Oh, isn't that Yiddish? Oh, why didn't they have Lashon Kodash there? You could have easily rendered it in a Lashon Kodash pronunciation, of course, because Lashon Kodash is a modern dialect. The daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan. So she was the daughter of an Israelite man. Lest they try to argue that no, that was probably somehow her mother. No, proper name masculine. Now, if anyone looks in the underlining text of this specific verse in 11, they're going to notice that it is very clear that this woman is the daughter of an Israelite man. And if anybody understands Hebrew grammar and how that works, they're going to know this very clearly. And I hope if Danyaahla watches this video and tries to make a response, if he attempts to make recourse to the Hebrew and try to go with some sort of faulty argument, which I already am thinking of, but I'm not going to give him any hints because I would hope he would come up with it by himself. If he tries it, I'm going to bring out the Hebrew and I'm going to parse it live on air to show that Danyaahla doesn't actually know Hebrew. I'm going to go ahead, though, and leave it at the English for now, because I don't like to give away any sort of little secrets for Hebrew Israelites to try to play off of. All right? So with that being said, since I finished with that, I'm going to bring out some more evidence, man. I think at this point, it is very clear that Danyaahla has no idea what he's talking about. He's still parroting those old, decrepit, faulty One West breakdowns. All right? He's going to continue, and he said that. And actually, I'm going to go back a little bit because I think I want the audience to actually catch everything he said. So I think he's not even fact checking any of this, man, at all. But let me go ahead and do one more thing though. Let me show King James' own writing. You know, Danyaahla likes to make recourse to specific old writings from antiquity. He talked about Oliver Cromwell. We're going to deal with that in a moment as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And I'd like to thank all of y'all for being patient out there. StreamYard is very interesting. I'll just say that. All right, here we go. This is King James' own writing from Premonitions. All right. This is his writing, Premonitions. All right. Look at this, what it says right here. And now for the point of heretic. I will never be ashamed to render on account of my profession and of that hope that is in me, as the apostles prescribeth. I am such a Catholic Christian, and what he means by Catholic is that he believed the Church of England, the Anglicans, were a succession from the churches that were formulated during the time of the apostles, leading up until the time of the councils, all the way until his day. He did not believe himself to be Roman Catholic. He's not using Catholic in the sense of Roman Catholic. Rather, he's using Catholic as universal. So he believed himself to be a continuation of the ancient churches that were established by the apostles that later came to be called universal, the universal body of Christ, or in the Greek, Katholikos. I am such a Catholic Christian as believeth in the three creeds, that of the apostles, that of the Council of Nicaea, and that of Athanasius. So wait a minute, the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea. So you mean to tell me King James believed in the Council of Nicaea? You know, the same one that these Hebrew Israelites don't like? The two latter being paraphrases to the former. And I believe them in that sense, as the ancient fathers and councils that made them did understand them, to which three creeds all the ministers of England do subscribeth at their ordination. And I also acknowledge for Orthodox all those other form of creeds that either were devised by the councils or particular fathers against such particular heresies as most reigned in their times. So what I want to do is also, if we could continue looking down here, he says something very interesting. And first for the Blessed Virgin Mary, I yield her that which the angel Gabriel pronounced of her, in which her canticles she prophesied of herself. That is, that she is blessed amongst women, and that all generations shall call her blessed. I have reverenced her as the mother of Christ, whom our Savior took his flesh, and so the mother of God, since the divinity and humanity of Christ are inseparable. And I freely confess that she is in glory, both above angels and men, her own son, that is both God and man, only accepted. Amazing that he also believes in the deity of Christ, and he also thinks it's proper to call Mary the mother of God, i.e. God the Son, not God the Father, nor is he saying that she's the mother of the Trinity or anything like that. And he actually says something here about the Apocrypha, but you know what? I'll bring this out at another time, but his actual beliefs concerning the Apocrypha are remarkably different than One Wester's. It's funny because he didn't consider the Apocrypha to be inspired scripture, but it is what it is, man. I sincerely, oh, here we go, it's up here. As for the scripture, no man doubteth that I believeth them, but even for the Apocrypha, I hold them in the same account that the ancients did, that they are still printed and bound with our Bibles and publicly read in our churches. I reverence them as the writings of holy and good men, but since they are not found in the canon, i.e. the canon of the Hebrew, we account them to be secondary lectionis or ordinais, which is Bellarmine's own distinction, and therefore not sufficient whereupon alone to ground any article of faith, except it be confirmed by some other place of canonical scripture. Concluding this point with Rufinus, who is no novelist, I hope, that the apocryphal books were by the fathers permitted to be read, that the apocryphal books were by the fathers permitted to be read, nor for confirmation of doctrine, but only for instruction of the people. So his view of the Apocrypha was remarkably different than those of Hebrew Israelites. Ironically enough, when we continue looking at some of his other writings, he says in Basilikon Doron 113, as for the Apocryphal books, I omit them because I am no papist. And what he meant by that is that he would divide them from the rest of the canon in their own Apocrypha section, which was meant to indicate that they were useful to read, but not of the same quality or even inspired as the other writings. And he based this on what he saw from the Israelites themselves in their canon, and also what many early church fathers had to say about the Apocrypha, such as Jerome and other people. Now, ironically enough, man, this is amazing, right? All we had to do is look at some of this stuff. And of course, this isn't even an argument he's making, but I just felt that it was funny. Because if we start looking at the writings of the very men that he makes appeals to, they themselves debunk him. So I'm actually going to go back a little bit. I'm going to go back a few seconds. I'm going to let him speak again, and we're going to continue to debunk his arguments. Here we go, y'all. Going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to play the video in a moment. Here we go. I'm muting myself and playing the video.
To power when he beheaded the Black King Charles II, the son of King James. When he came into power, he rounded up the Black people that were in England, Ireland, and Scotland and shipped them to the Americas to be slaves. That is documented. Okay? From the time of Oliver Cromwell and later the English waged war against the British. The Stuarts were also called Jacobians. When you look up the Jacobean dynasty or the Jacobean lineage in England, that's talking about King James and his family. Why would they call themselves Jacob, Jacobian? Why? Anyway.
This is getting sad, y'all. All right, hold on a second, y'all. Here we go. Here we go. All right, here we go. Hopefully y'all can hear me. There we go. This is getting incredibly sad at this point. This is just sad. It's like he's not even attempting to fact check any of his stuff, man. All right, look at this, y'all. Let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that he tried to bring out. All right, give me a moment. This is utterly amazing, man. All a person has to do is Google search this stuff. We live in the technology age. Amazing, amazing that this is what this is coming to. That these guys, all these many years later, first he said that, first of all, he got that Charles II, it was Charles I. All right, let's go ahead and look at slavery as it pertains to the Americas when it comes to English people. Let's see when slavery was actually introduced, y'all. Give me one moment. I'm just getting my screen together. And he's going to see some surprising things. So we're just going to debunk all this foolishness that he said. Utter folly. No other words to describe this. All a person has to do is Google search this. All right, here we go. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. And now what I'm going to do is read the relevant portion. 1619, first records of slaves in Virginia. All right. Now, this is talking about in the Americas, right? Jamestown, the first permanent British colony in North America, is founded in modern Virginia in 1607. 1619, first records of slaves in Virginia. So let's look at Jamestown. Who founded Jamestown? Because he said it was Oliver Cromwell, the one that was responsible for sending slaves to the Americas. According to him, from England? Is that what he was trying to say? I'd like to see where he's getting this idea from. Jamestown Colony, first permanent English settlement in North America, located near present-day Williamsburg, Virginia, established in May 14, 1607. The colony gave England its foothold in the European competition for the New World, which had been dominated by the Spanish since the voyages of Christopher Columbus in the late 15th century. Let's go down. Origins. The colony was a private venture financed and organized by the Virginia Company of London. King James the First, the same King James who commissioned the King James Bible, granted a charter to a group of investors for the establishment of the company on April 10th, 1606. During this era, Virginia was the English name for the entire east coast of North America, north of Florida. King James was the one who financed this. Let's continue looking at this, man. Representation, democracy, and slavery. Let's look at this. In the summer of 1619, two significant changes occurred in the colony that would have lasting influence. One was the company's introduction of representative governments to English America, which began on July 30th, and the opening of the General Assembly voters in each of the colony's 4 cities. Arab boroughs elected 2 burgesses to represent them, as did the residents of each of the 7 plantations. Now, I want y'all to keep in mind the first slaves were sent in 1619, right? I'm going to do something real quick. I want you guys to look at when King James stopped reigning. Let's see if this occurred during the reign of King James I, the same King James that they believe is an Israelite. Let's see if this occurred during his reign. King James. You know, I'll go ahead and pull up Wikipedia. Not saying Wikipedia, you know, we could use anything. But, man, it is amazing to me. Let me see if Wikipedia actually has it. Let me see. Or I could actually pull up Encyclopedia Britannica to keep with the British theme. All right. Okay, yep, I got it on Encyclopedia Britannica, y'all. Britannica. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you imagine if he's getting this wrong, how much more he's getting wrong in that presentation? Trust me, he's getting a lot of things wrong. And I can't wait to go through everything at an appropriate time in the future. So here we go. Look at this right here, y'all. Their own precious King James that they like to make appeals to. James I, born June 19, 1566, died March 27, 1625. Look when he reigned. First Stuart King of England from 1603 to 1625. When were the first slaves sent to Virginia? 1619? King James was on the throne during that time. King James of England was on the throne during that time. It is amazing to me that Danyaahla doesn't know this. He said it was Oliver Cromwell, but the very man that he thinks is an Israelite. Look at this guy. Let me show you this. They'll talk about whitewashing, and I'm going to deal with that in the future. Look at this. This is the guy that they think is an Israelite. This gentleman right there on your screen. Of course, they'll assert that this was whitewashing. This was whitewashing. Until you realize that this was an oil on canvas by Daniel Mitten, 1621. King James was still alive at this time, y'all. This was actual commissioned live artwork of King James. And if they try to bring out those woodcuts of King James, I will show y'all how they are getting even that wrong. It's funny how they use the black and white woodcuts, but they'll ignore the actual commissioned live artwork made by the man himself, commissioned by the man himself, by his own painters. Man, oh man, oh man. It just gets worse and worse for these people. Man. Man. So he talked about Oliver Cromwell. Let's deal with that as well. Let's find out about Oliver Cromwell. It's amazing, man. We're reaching the end of this, y'all. Gonna put this one to bed in a moment. Amazing, 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 man. I'm utterly shocked at some of the stuff that these guys come up with. Oh, and he also talked about Jacobeans. He means Jacobites. We're gonna look at the Jacobites. We're gonna look at that too. You know, it is frustrating to think that. How long did this take me? This didn't take me but a few minutes to just Google this, man. Of course, at this point, he'll probably say, oh, you trust the white man's knowledge. Meanwhile, when they're making their appeals, they use the quote unquote white man's knowledge, right? Isn't that funny? All right, here we go, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, he talked about Jacobites. Let's look at that first before we look at Oliver Cromwell. All right, Jacobite. All right. In British history, a supporter of the exiled Stuart King James II, Jacobus, and his descendants after the Glorious Revolution. The political importance of the Jacobite movement extended from 1688 until at least 1750s. Jacobites, especially under William III and Queen Anne, could offer a feasible alternative title to the crown and the exiled court in France. But he said, "Oh, these are the descendants." What was this guy talking about? Man, I mean, let's continue looking at this, man. English civil wars, also called Great Rebellions, fighting that took place in the British Isles between the supporters of the monarch of Charles I and his son and successor Charles II, and opposing groups in each of Charles' kingdom, including I'm going to get this wrong. Parliamentarians in England, Covenanters in Scotland, and Confederates in Ireland. The English Civil Wars were traditionally considered to have begun in England in August 1642, when Charles I raised an army against the wishes of Parliament. So you could read the rest. Not going to go through all this. And who are the key people? You see all these people: Robert Blake, Charles I, Charles II, Oliver Cromwell. He was on the opposing side. In fact, I'll do that real quick. I mean, the fact that I even have to do this is just, it's amazing to me. All right, here we go, y'all. Pulling up the article for Oliver Cromwell. We're going to go ahead and read this. And by the way, this was occurring between English people versus English people. But he'll try to make a division between British and English, when British would be indicating the monarchy, United Monarchy, and English would be indicating specifically someone from England, or even potentially those who speak the English language, but more specifically the people of England. Oliver Cromwell, y'all. Born April 25th, 1599, died September 3rd, 1658. Now, the Jacobite movement, as we were reading earlier, it extended from 1688 until at least 1750s. So this was after the time of Oliver Cromwell. Man, it is amazing that all it took was a little Google searching to find this. English soldier and statesman who led parliamentary forces in the English Civil Wars and was Lord Protector of England, Scotland, and Ireland during the Republican Commonwealth as one of the generals of the parliamentary side in the English Civil War against King Charles I. Of course, because he thinks that Charles I is an Israelite because, he's descended from King James. Then I guess that means that he was fighting against the Israelites. And this is where they come up with the foolish British English argument, because I think in their mind, they think English must mean like it's code word for Edomite, and then British is like code word for Israelite. Although we saw earlier that British would indicate even someone from England, i.e. someone who is English. All right, y'all. I think that's is anything else needs to be brought out? Anything else? I think we beat this dead horse pretty thoroughly. Oh man. So Danyaahla, this message is for you. Put the pseudo history down. Step your research up, please. I say this with no deep disrespect in mind, because I know that you're caught up in the heresy right now. I know that you're doing this because you're trying to find you're actually trying to find you know, things that try to coalesce with your presuppositions. In other words, you're looking for confirmation bias. You're looking for confirmation bias because the reality is, if we read actual history and we read the Bible, we're not going to come to your conclusions at all. The thing is that you have bought into presuppositions that you learned at One West. You continue to try to find arguments to coalesce with what you believe in. And what you're actually doing is you're eisegeting, not exegeting, eisegeting, reading your presuppositions into history and into the Bible to come up with these faulty conclusions. The reality is neither the Bible nor history support your conclusions. And when I get around to doing Dark Ages Debunked, you best believe I'm going to go through your arguments one by one. This was something very small, Danyaahla. Imagine this was destroyed utterly, and you were getting basic things wrong. You couldn't even get the name of the king, Charles the First. It was Charles the First, not Charles the Second. You couldn't even get that right. And I'm going to address the whole Stuart Charles, all the other stuff that a lot of y'all like to bring up. I promise I am going to go into that, and I'm going to show you how you're even getting that wrong. And I do this because I care about your soul, Danyaahla. I don't want to see you end up in the lake of fire because of utter folly, because you're following after another gospel and another Christ. The reality is, I don't do this because I want to humiliate you. I do this because I sincerely think you're unlearned, and I believe that you have beguiled yourself into something absolutely, positively false. So at some point in the future, I will absolutely positively be addressing your so-called Dark Ages doctrine, which is, you know, something that you're parroting from One West. This is not new to you. This is something that you got from One West. And I'm also going to show how Arya and these guys were trying to make appeals to the book of Revelation and how that actually contradicts their Dark Ages doctrine, the one that you're parroting. Utterly, utterly sad, man. Utterly, utterly sad. You know. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen. The ish is one of the Hebrew Israelites' weakest arguments. It absolutely is, my sis. Absolutely is. Absolutely. You know. Man, oh man. Let me actually look around real quick before I call it a night. You know. Man. It is really, truly sad, man. Oh, yes, he was. King James was absolutely an Anglican. Yes, he was. You know. You know, it's I just want to say this, y'all. Keep Danyaahla in prayer, both for discernment, which he seems to lack. And let me actually look at this right here. Okay. This guy doesn't know anything of English history. You're absolutely right, Jonathan. He does not. Does not know English history whatsoever. I absolutely hate pseudo information. I do too. And unfortunately, Hebrew Israelites are huge propagators of pseudo information. You know, man, oh man. You know, does that guy know that the original British were described by the Romans as Alba White, which is where Britain gets its nickname Albion? Interesting. Just looking around. You know. Anywho, y'all. I think I'm gonna wrap this one up in a moment, y'all. Let me just go ahead and say this. This is going to be one of the many refutations that you're going to see from me against Maccabees TV. I'm going to go ahead and go into his Dark Ages doctrine, which he's still parroting. I'm going to go into a few other things. I'm also going to bring out some of the claims he's making for Lashawan Kodash. And for those who don't know, on my channel, for those who are watching this, you can actually check out the playlist, and there are refutations against the various Hebrew Israelite groups that came out of One West. So if you want to find anything on Sakari, GMS, ISUPK, the original school, which is today known as the ICGJC, and various other groups, you can actually find them in those playlists. There's a ton and tons of videos. And so I just wanted to bring this out. At the end of the day, it's truly, truly, truly sad, man. You know, it's sad that this is the extent of this is the extent of their argumentation in terms of not even fact checking, man. These guys aren't even looking into this stuff at all, like to fact check it, to be like, let's make sure that we're presenting something, accurate. Yeah, the Dark Ages doctrine is absolutely mind-numbingly insane. It's I mean, man, I can't even begin to tell you how foolish that doctrine is. And let me tell you something. It's one of my pet peeves because it shows how little fact checking they're actually doing. I can't believe they are still sticking to the Dark Age stuff. Yep, man. It's sad, man. Real sad. But with that being said, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I want to thank everyone who came out. Danyaahla, I look forward to any rebuttal video that you have, because when you decide to make your rebuttal video, if you do address these claims, or not claims, but I would say refutations, because they're not really claims. They're actually correcting your mistakes, your claims, your assertions. If you address the arguments that were presented today and you continue to bring out folly, I will continue to refute the things that you're saying. And this will be an ongoing thing. And if you want to go into books, Danyaahla, we can take it there. I can go into books to show you from scholarly sources that you are getting this demonstrably wrong. And I wholeheartedly and truly hope and pray that the Lord removes the scales off of your eyes so you can come out of the heresy that you're in and truly come to know Christ as Lord and Savior before your time on the earth is done. That is my heart's desire for you, truly. But with that being said, y'all, I want to thank everyone for coming out. God bless you all. I hope this has edified someone out there. And until next time, take care.